Info junkies, hoop nuts. You know who you are, and we know why you're out there. You're looking for some info. We got it right here, baby, because you're now in the zone. Pete Coles, Rich Sutter. We're in the Sweet 16, folks. Beautiful time of the year. A little bit of in-between time between the 32 and the 16. Don't worry about it. We're going to walk you through all of it. We're going to walk you through what happened. We're going to walk you through what's happening, and we're going to walk you through, hopefully, when we get to the Final Four next week, we're going to walk you through exactly what's going on out there as well. So you're going to get some really, really good coverage from us out at the Final Four. We're going to do our best to get some coaches interviewed done. We're going to do a regular show out there, possibly bring in a guest or two. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Pete and I are looking forward to that, and I hope you are too. So we're going to kick right off in Pete's Corner, where we start every week. Pete postulates, formulates, and coagulates suddenly 3 questions for me, and we knock them out. Have some good ones. Let's see if Pete can keep himself on a roll.
All right. Is Duke still your pick?
Duke. But that's going to be a really rough matchup with St. John's.
Yeah, I didn't expect St. John's to go this far.
St. John's is athletic and good and well coached, and they're playing with that little bit of a vibe right now after that huge win at the buzzer over Kansas. We'll talk about that, but that was something that can get you on a roll. But I still sit with Duke. Yeah, I picked them. Duke, Michigan are still alive. Florida got bumped out, and I still have my Arkansas riding on the other side, although, as we're going to illuminate when we talk about this, they have Arizona up next, and that's another monster matchup. I would say right now that the Final Four is going to be a deflation from where they are right now. Because
it's going to be a letdown, you mean, for the public?
A tiny little bit, and this is why I'm going to say this, because you got all of these 16 right now, and we're going to run through it, but you got coaching matchups right now that are unbelievable. You got 16 teams that are playing. You got 8 games left that are absolutely really, really good. You're going to get down to an Elite 8, but I don't know that it's going to get as good as this Sweet 16 because Pete and I have talked about this. The weapons of math destruction have now brought you this designed future of basketball in which the Power Five are going to be represented all the way through. So these teams, we have a thing from SBU Unfurled, one of my favorite guys on Twitter, going to talk about him a little bit, about a lot of firsts that are occurring, about Cinderella really is on the run. She's on the lam. They're looking for her, and she's had to leave town. She's got in the chariot with her mice, and she's out. She's out. She took off, and we're going to explain some of that as we go. But it's been really, really good tournament so far, and what they designed as unscrupulous and as nasty as we've talked about the whole formulaic of it, with the NIL and the portal, those 2 Trojan horses got wheeled in right away in order to ensure that this thing just kept going to the top. We told you this a long time ago. Pete, this is show number 150. This is also something I got to bring up. So we're in number 150 right now, which is a bit of a birthday for us. 3 years on the roll here, and In the Zone has got cracking the 150 mark today. It's just, that's kind of special. Sorry to segue there, folks, but that popped into my brain as well. But, back to your point at hand, this has been designed. The future of basketball started a couple of years ago. They brought in Baker, who's a politician, former governor, and he's been able to sit by and do what he did when he was governor, of just kind of sit above the fray of everything and be surprised, by everything that's occurring under his watch. And so there's been very little solution from them. They've been getting destroyed in court on the NCAA level. They've been getting destroyed in court. So I think they're on the run as well, too, because they've been, guilty of this malfeasance for years themselves. And the reason that they did it, although it seems to be a good reason, because once they broke this door open, they knew this door was Pandora's box. Once you started paying the players, once you started eliminating amateurism, they knew what they were doing. The NCAA fought like crazy to do that for years. But the way in which they fought to do that wasn't appropriate. So you've had this kind of dichotomy of sides in this thing that have just been banging at each other, and now you got it. Now it's here. Power 5, Cinderella's home. No mid-majors left in the Sweet 16. We're going to go into all of it in depth. But, Pete, I think your first question's pretty good. I am still holding on with what I got with the Dukies. I think they're going to have a really tough game from St. John's. But if you look at all of the 16 right now, who would you take over St. John's to play?
I'm still rooting for UConn. I think that they have it in them.
No, I mean, if you were Duke.
Oh, if I was Duke.
And all the other 16 teams available right now that are out there, who would you pick rather than St.
John's is hot right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but who would you pick given the other 16 teams?
Yeah, there's no layups.
Would you take Connecticut?
There's no layups anymore.
No. Would you take Arizona right now? No. So I think St. John's, is a very tough opponent, but Duke, if they're going to go, they got to go through it because all 16, whether they designed it right or whether they got it wrong, that's for people to discuss. But however it is right now, it's a pretty good representation of the best, which is what they had hoped for. I don't think that there was the need to, because Cinderella was never that much of a factor, especially going into the later weeks. They stayed alive till the Sweet 16. They caused everybody a little excitement, maybe got to the Elite 8. On an occasion, they got into the Final Four, but that only added to the excitement of it. It didn't detract from it in any way, really. And so I think what they've tried to do, I get it, but they kind of knew that this was going to wind up eliminating those Cinderella stories from the tournament. They went ahead and did it anyway, and that's where you are right now. So it's kind of storyless, but it does have a representation, at least numerically, of the best right now. And I think Duke is one of the best teams in the country. Does St. John's present matchup problems for them? Yes, they do. Ejiofor is tough inside. The wings they have are very, very good on St. John's. If they shoot the ball well, Duke's going to have their hands full. But again, there's going to be a lot of eyes on Shire. Because he's had a couple of really, really good teams that have folded up. In this instance, right now, that's what you're looking at. You've got the old, sage, veteran coach in Pitino up against the young, rising star, no doubt, in Shire. But right now, the gun's pointed at Shire a little bit because Pitino's that guy. And that's the guy maybe you don't want to see in this game because he's that good of a coach.
Yeah.
He's going to have his team prepped and ready.
Yep.
You can be sure of that. And Shire, has a very young team that you're not 100% sure all the time how they're going to react in a big situation, granted, against a much older team. This St. John's team is much more veteran, much more seasoned. Pete, great question. Let's shoot for two.
All right. Does the NBA limp into the end of their season and rest all their guys because they can hide behind the spotlight of the NCAA tournament right now?
I think with all the gambling going on, I think that's going to be frowned upon. But there's a million different ways to step out. All they have to do is declare. Where the NBA runs into the malfeasance part is when they say he's fine, and then he doesn't make the lineup. And all of the gamblers that put their money down on the Celtics tonight didn't know that Jaylen Brown was out, but they did. That's what they frown upon. Then they frown upon it in the other vein as well, too, when the guy wasn't hurt, but now all of a sudden he's going to play. He was hurt, and now all of a sudden he's going to make it in the lineup. Again, shifting the line, shifting the differential in the favoritism of that game. I think that's what they frown upon. I think other than that, they want protocols in place. What they've done is they said, you have to declare him out to let us know that he's out. You got to declare him like the NFL. They have a list. It's probable, doubtful.
Right, yeah, sure.
You have to list them in that vein so people can now look at the list and go, doubtful and probable means that he's out.
Yeah, but is the NBA teams going to do that? Because that's going to hurt ticket
They
sales.
have to do it. They're doing it now.
But wouldn't that hurt ticket sales to know that the star you want to go see is going to be out?
It's not timely enough. The tickets are already sold.
All right. Okay.
The spectator gets screwed. It's the spectator who gets screwed in that event. But again, like there are so few very marquee guys in the NBA right now. Like, is LeBron James packing your arena right now just because he shows up in Boston? I think it makes it a better ticket. People would want to go see it, but I don't think he's the draw that everybody thinks he is. Name me another guy in the NBA that's going to load up that arena automatically. SGA, I don't see it. Joker, no way. No way. Doesn't have that kind of that. The Denver Nuggets are coming to town. Doesn't have that ring. LA against Boston has a little bit of a ring to it. Yeah, you might get something out of that, but by and large, throughout the rest of that, yeah. And Pete, you said, are they limping in? They're crawling in right now. They're crawling in right now because they've got so much of this decided already. We're going to go through the playoff thing again. We've been doing it for 2 or 3 weeks to show you that the NBA's real problem is here. There ain't no movement. There's nothing to be had right now, really.
Yeah, there's no excitement going into the playoffs, right?
The number one seeds on both sides are locked up, basically.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that's 1 through 6, that's going to get that first round bye, locked up pretty much. The 7 through 10s, locked up. All of the OOPs locked up. You're out. They've been eliminated. There's E's next to all of those names shooting down the path there. When you get to the Pelicans and on down, boom, a string of E's. When you get to the Nets and the Wizards, boom, a string of E's. They've been eliminated for a long time now. I'm sure that happens every single year. But I think with the NBA, with all of its problems, that's another one. That's another log on the fire, Pete. All right, let's shoot for 3. We got a lot to cover today.
All right, so third one is I noticed ESPN starting to do this with all the brackets that were busted, and I know everybody in the ESPN pool, there are now 0 perfect brackets. They started a secondary bracket pool that starts with the Sweet 16. What do you think about that?
They do that all the time. It's 1 in like a quadrillion. I didn't even know what a quadrillion was. Until I saw the odds on picking a perfect bracket.
There's my Sweet 16 bracket. I did a second chance
bracket.
bracket.
You did the second one, huh?
I did both of them.
And you came up with UConn?
Yep.
That doesn't have anything to do with your wife doing that, helping you there. Come on, Pete.
No.
Christy helped you there.
Nope.
You like the Huskies,
I still don't think so. I still am shocked that St. John's has gone as far as they have.
They handled UConn twice this year.
I know.
And in the Big East final.
I know, but I think this is the payback.
They're older.
Yeah.
You know, they're older. And what happened also is they got, in the portal, man. There's teams that have gotten into the portal and they've dropped and they've done terrible. And then there's teams that have gotten into the portal and done very well. You have to say St. John's, with the lineup that they have right now, has done pretty well in the portal.
Yep.
They also have the money to retain their players.
Yep.
They also have the bag to retain their players. None of their guys got poached. None of their guys got taken. They stayed together. So obviously they've got a good vibration with the coaching staff. They feel like they have a chance to become a good NBA player if they stay there. And they've got a chance now. St. John's is this is the heyday, man. This is back in the day. St. John's was great. They were fighting Georgetown, John Thompson, Louis Carnesecca. That was the story of college basketball. St. John's was in the thick of it. Chris Mullin, Walter Berry, all New York products, Mark Jackson, all New York kids that grew up there. And that was the story, And so to have them back in the story is really, really big because they were dormant for a really, really long time.
So, all right, one quick bonus question. Has Pitino cracked the code?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at where
seems like he's the best in the country at it right now.
We have a tendency, I think, to look in the snapshot, but when you consider the whole video with him, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The guy was in the NBA twice.
Yep.
Coached the Boston Celtics. Coach franchises that are unbelievable. And if wanted to go in and coach the Lakers right now, they'd take him in a minute.
Yep.
He has that kind of cachet. I think that, given all of the stops. I mean, I was a young coach, young player when I was at St. Bonaventure, all right? He brought his Boston University team in. And they were, just a group of guys that weren't, overly like, you'd say, wow, they blew us away with their talent. What they blew us away with was how hard they played. with how intense they were about their business out on the court. We wound up beating them that night, but it was a really close game. We just had better players than them, I think. But I remember him being in the hallway with one of the refs, and he was fiery, and I hear him saying now, oh, well, I don't talk to the refs. I said, that's not what you said to Murph Shapiro in the hallway, brother. But I give people room for change as well, too. I give people room for change. Yeah, but that's a good one, Pete. I think he has cracked the code. I think he has.
I don't think many others have, though, besides
Where
that.
hasn't he won?
Right, that's true.
I mean, they put him in Iona. He won.
Yep.
He had to go to Iona. He won.
Yeah, where are they now?
Right. You can always see that with the what happens when he goes. So and then count Kentucky, count Louisville, count the national championships. There's no way to dispute it. Now, is he on Mount Rushmore?
For college coaches?
Yeah. If you got five heads to hang up there, is he one of them?
I would say so.
That's another strip for another day, Pete.
Yep.
We're going to talk. I'll hopefully remember
Maybe that's
that.
a question we ask the coaches down in Indy. Who's on your 5-man Mount Rushmore for coaches?
I love that.
Period.
I love that. Write it down. We're going to do it.
All right, I'll remind you.
All right, so let's go to Power 15 now. We got our NBAs. We're going to rock and roll there. We've got it going there. Not much movement. Not much change. OKC 57-15. You got to think at 72 games, with 10 left, they're in pretty good spot. But the Spurs are 3 games behind them. San Antonio Spurs 54-18, Pete. And we're going to roll through this thing pretty quick, but they're 3 games back. They're not out of taking that number one seed in the West, number 1 seed overall. So that's some great growth for the Spurs, Wembanyama, the whole franchise down there right now. But we got the Spurs, number 2, 54-18. There they go. And Wembanyama's had a fabulous year. Has to be in consideration if he has enough games for the MVP, because so many guys are being eliminated by that 65-game rule.
Yep.
And I had another segment in the show about it. We'll talk about it right now. The NBA Players Association is looking to have a change in that rule. I don't know if they're looking to have it disbanded completely or they're looking to amend the number. I would say they're probably looking to amend the number, but where are you going to go? You play 82 games. 65 is 17 misses. 17 misses on 82 is close to 25% of the game.
Right, yeah, sure.
Should you be in consideration for an award that prestigious, that big, if you miss that many games?
Or is the award actually that prestigious?
That's
right.
It's a valid question.
Right.
Valid question. What have they done to it is even another question.
Yep.
Detroit Pistons, Pete, 52-19. They're number 1 in the East. They're 5 off the total number here. And why does this matter? Because eventually that's going to hold home court advantage all the way through. So whoever comes up with the number 1 overall, if they survive, get all the way through their conference, then come up into the final. In the final, they'll have home court advantage. That's why that's important. So I'd say at 3, maybe the Spurs. At 5, the Pistons, not really a good shot, but hats off to the Pistons again, man. They've brought that franchise back from the dead, and they are the number 1 in the Eastern Conference. Mea culpa to the Motown Motor, baby. Boston Celtics, 47-24. Only 5. They're 9.5 games off, but being 9.5 games off the total in the NBA and being number 2 in the Eastern Conference right now, nothing short of a miracle by Coach Mazzella, the Celtics, their whole organization. They've got Brad Stevens. Everybody on Twitter, when any job opens up, they go, you must make Brad Stevens say no. Folks, he said no. The guy's with the Celtics, the general manager of the Celtics, one of the best franchises in the world. Okay, you think he wants to go back, jump into that madness that you created? You got to take your umbrage for running those guys out. You got to take something to heart for having run those guys out. The best of the best won't come back in because of what you created. The best of the best ran out the door, and there's more coming this year, in my opinion. All right. So, and I don't think that's a loaded question about Bill Self. I'm not saying that. All right. New York Knicks, 48-25, because I think Coach Self is coming back. For all you Kansas fans who might watch us. They're coming. I think Coach Sutter going to give it another run. 48-25 with the Knicks, Pete. That's just enough to keep the heat off of Mike Brown. You want to see if they're going to flip with the Celtics. It doesn't really matter in terms of opponent because they would still play each other. Has everybody just business goes as usual. They would still play each other there. But what you would get out of that is, again, home court advantage. And I don't know that matters a whole ton, but I think it matters some, especially when you're getting into those close games and the fans are going absolutely crazy for you. All right, Lakers, 46-26, 11 games off the pace. A good year for them. A good year for them. The really good news for them is they're number 1 and 2 right now are playing in harmony. LeBron and Luka have been really, really good together as of late. They've been winning. They've been going. If they can carry that into the playoffs, they might be able to make a run at it. The problem is they ain't got a whole lot else. Yeah. You know, they got Reeves, they got some guys, Hashimura, they got some of those guys, but they don't have another like young stud in that lineup that's going to say, okay, when the old guys get a little dragged, or they don't have that off-help, really, really good defender that's going to cover some of their mistakes. They don't have that, you know. They don't have Bill Russell. You know, they don't have that guy that's in the background there that's going to change shots for them, and I think that could be a factor because their defense is porous, to say the best. Cleveland Cavaliers hanging around. Cleveland Cavaliers are hanging around. They're 12 off the pace, 45-27, getting ready for the playoffs. They would face the Detroit Pistons, and I'm pretty sure that's who, you know, they're gonna have a tough time in there. That's a really, really good series. If they get Harden back and healthy and 100%, that can really change things in that dynamic. But the way the Pistons are playing right now, that's a really, really tough matchup for the Cavaliers. But let's flip that also, Pete. You got a really tough matchup for the Pistons if they get the Cavaliers, because everybody thought the Cavaliers would be number 1.
Yep.
You know, in the East this year, they've underachieved, but that doesn't mean they're not still pretty good.
Yep.
Denver Nuggets, 45-28, sitting tight right there, but they're going to have a tough time if they draw into that 2-3 game. You know, in the West, I don't know, you know, where they're going to be at, you know, but if they get in with the Spurs, that's going to be rough. That's going to be rough because the Rockets have kind of fallen out of there. The Timberwolves have climbed over the Rockets. The Rockets now are in 10th, and they're in danger. You know, they're in danger of slipping out a little bit. Not really going to, you know, but they're at 16. But the Raptors are behind them in the Eastern and Western bump, but they're when we look at the playoffs in the finals over there, they're in the top 6, but they're falling quickly. All right, so let's just back up a little bit because we were at Denver Nuggets. Minnesota Timberwolves, 44-28. They're really playing good ball right now. This is a team you got to watch out for because they're mercurial.
They're coming
talented, and they're on the move.
Yeah, they're coming.
There they are. They're on the move. They've come up a little bit in our poll. With not easy to move in this poll right now.
Yeah.
You know, but they're on the trend. They're trending. Let's put it that way. Houston Rockets, they're scaring me a little bit. 43-28. Is this too much for Durant? You know, he's played a lot of games this year. He's been out there quite a bit. You know, is he getting worn down? Is he going to be able to contribute for a really, really tough grind series in which they're going to get lit up now because now they're slipping out. You know, they're going to get lit up. And so they're probably not going to slip out, I would say, you know, of the playoff things. They're at 13-5 off of the pace, and then you have the Suns right underneath them, but it's 4 games. It could happen, but that's a lot to make up in 10 games. To drop 4 games, they'd have to really fall out. They have been falling, though, so let's see if they can catch that falling knife. All right, so now you got the Toronto Raptors, 40-31, Pete. They're doing good, man. They're all right, you know, and they could be a tough matchup for somebody in that first round. You know, if they get the bye, they're going to get a bye most likely. But then in that next round, they could have a good matchup. I think they could advance. You know, I think they could advance because you're going to wind up playing somebody in the middle there that you might be able to clip. The Atlanta Hawks, 40-32, doing good without Trae Young. They traded him, and they've been playing better. It's called addition by subtraction in the coaching ranks. People don't do it as much anymore, but boy, oh boy, in this day and age, it works. Because when you get into the locker room, everybody in there is trying to hold these personal relationships really, really tight and do a good job. So nobody really wants conflict there. They just want to keep it nice. So no matter what these guys do to the team, they just want to keep it nice. And then when the coach comes up and says, hey, or the general manager comes up and says, hey, this is unbelievable. We're getting rid of this guy. As much as everybody thinks he's a star, much as everybody thinks he's great, we're going to get rid of this guy, and we're going to be better. And it's amazing how many times that actually works. All right, so you got to keep an eye on that. Maybe they catch somebody in the playoffs, it's going to show. Phoenix 40-33. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not real high on this team right now because they just don't have a lot of depth. They've had injuries. They've been beaten up. They're hanging on, but I want to see it. We'll see when we get to the playoff look right after this. You got the 76ers, 39-33. Good year for them because they didn't have Embiid most of the year. They didn't have Paul George most of the year. They just, their whole front line basically didn't show, and they had Maxey, and they had Edgecombe, the rookie. It's interesting. Very interesting. 15 is the Orlando Magic, Pete. Orlando Magic, we'll see. We'll see. They are in the 7-8 rank right now. We'll see if they can move. They have a chance to move up on the 76ers. They could catch the Hawks for the 6th spot. Here's what we're talking about. Eastern Conference, number 1, the Pistons. Number 2, the Celtics. Number 3, the Knicks. Number 4, the Cavaliers. Number 5, the Raptors. Number 6, the Hawks. Those are your top 6 right now. Now, the Hawks, as we talked about, are 12.5 out. But that puts the 76ers, the Magic, the Hornets, and the Heat less than 2 games behind them. So there could be some action there, could be a little bit of excitement there to see if somebody can climb out of that play-in game and catch the Hawks, or do the Hawks now fall in, or do they get going? Because even the Raptors, at 12 is still within range. Mm-hmm. They're still within range. I'd say the Cavaliers are safe right there. But that could be a little bit of an excitement storyline, a baseline that we'll follow as we go throughout. Do the Hawks in their next 10 games get clipped, and do the 76ers, Magic, Hornets, or Heat, any of them get really hot right now and then get into that top 6? You want to be in the top 6 because that's the first round bye. You don't have to play. You get to sit out. The OOPs go home. They get ready for the draft. The first round guys of 7, 8, 9, 10, they're going to play. And then 2 of those are going to survive to come up and join the 6, make the 8, and now you're in the quarters. But you want to survive that first 6 so you stay in the quarters automatic. All right? So in that other one, you have 76ers, Magic, Hornets, and Heat. They could all change places, and they could all catch the Hawks. It's conceivable. They could catch the Raptors, too. Could catch both, could catch none, could catch some. We'll have to keep an eye on that. OOP, Pete, Bucks, Bulls, Nets, Wizards, and Pacers. Goodbye. Call us. We'll get you ready for the draft. All right? Come see us at the Final Four. We'll give you some names. Especially the Nets. You got all those second rounders coming up. We'll get you some guys. Better than the guys you drafted last year, I could promise you that. All right, West, you got the Thunder, number 1. The Spurs, number 2. Lakers, 3. Nuggets, 4. Timberwolves and Rockets filling out 5 and 6. Okay? Now you got the Suns right below that in the 7 hole. They're 17-5 out. 13-5 is the Rockets. That's 4 games in 10. Difficult to do, but the Rockets are not out of the woods yet of being bumped, as we were talking about, into that play-in series. And then the Suns would elevate. I don't see the Suns getting hot enough right now. I wish it would get hot enough outside too, Pete. It's getting there. Yep. We're getting a little bit warmer, and it's going to be a beautiful spring and summer here. I'm ready for that. But that's what you got to keep an eye on. The Clippers are pretty much done. The Trailblazers and Warriors, they're all done. They're going to be in the play-in. So there's not going to be any movement for them. All right, OOP on the other side, you got the Pelicans, Grizzlies, Mavericks, Jazz, and Kings. All right, let's jump into the NCAA tournament a little bit. We got about a half hour left. It's going to be tight because I want to go through every single game with you. All right, I watched a lot of them.
Yeah,
I watched a lot of them, and there were some good ones there. First game off the get, Siena and Duke. Duke, 71-65. Jerry McNamara vaunted off of that and gets the Syracuse job. He gets to go back home. Okay? They were up by 10 points at halftime before Duke went zone, switched it up a little bit, and came out. But imagine having to go zone against Siena. All right? That was a great job by Coach McNamara. They've also got a couple of his guys right now that are contemplating joining him at Syracuse. Keep an eye on that one. Michigan played Howard 101-80. It was a blowout. Howard had a play-in game previous. Great season for Coach Blakeney. My guy Rod Balanis down there as well. Unbelievable season for them. Unbelievable couple of seasons for them. Houston, and living in the private Idaho, I thought the Vandals might be able, because it's been a long time since they've been there, and it kind of showed. 78-47, Houston blasted them. Michigan State over North Dakota, thought it might be a close game. It wasn't. 92-67. Illinois 105 over Penn, 70. Coach McCaffrey from Iowa moved to Penn. Now people might be talking about him to go someplace else. Gonzaga, 73-64 over Kennesaw State. Nice job by Kennesaw State to hang tough there. That was a little bit better game than the score shows. Nebraska, they're doing well. 76-47 over the men of Troy. My guys, Arkansas, they dropped Hawaii. I was a little surprised at that, but they put up 97 points. They got out, they ran, they do what Arkansas does. They played loose, they played free, almost like a schoolyard team. But when it comes together, they put that talent out there, it just clicks, and then they're really tough to beat because they are playing loose and free. That's why they gave St. John's all those problems last year, because St. John's was employing a switching defense. And the offense that Calipari has is so loose that it didn't matter. And with his guys so athletic and good, when you switch, it don't matter. You got guys in mismatches, and they're going to exploit that. And that's what they did well, and that's what they're good at. High Point, a big upset, Pete, 83-82 over Wisconsin. Boom. Shaka-laka-laka, boom. That was huge. That one came out of nowhere.
That busted everybody.
That one took everybody's bracket down a notch. Vanderbilt, 78-68 over McNeese. McNeese played well. Louisville, 83-79 over South Florida. Hodgson moving now from South Florida and taking the Providence job. Louisville, 83-79 there. It really wasn't that close. South Florida closed it up at the end, but it wasn't. Okay, Pete, here's a surprise for everybody, but it wasn't for me because I called it on my bracket. VCU over North Carolina, down by 19 points, pushed into overtime, 82-78. North Carolina then goes and fires Coach Hubert Davis after having a 125-54 record. We'll talk about that in depth a little bit later on the show, who they might be looking at, what are they doing. The funny thing is I was thinking this week is we might have put Adam Nelson on 1 week too soon. Because this thing's blew up this week, man. Boy, did it go crazy. But VCU came over and won. Texas over BYU. Texas still alive. They got talent. Good coach, Sean Miller. And they clipped BYU. And they had a play-in game. They had to play NC State, who was very, very good. They came out and clipped BYU. They look good. We'll see how they go, but they've got a rough matchup coming. But Texas A&M over St. Mary's, quick exit for St. Mary's. I was expecting a little bit more out of them in this tournament. They do have some quick exit. Texas A&M was a rough matchup for them. It was a very, very difficult stylistic matchup for them. TCU, 66 over 64 for Ohio State. We called that one as well. We had TCU going, really good effort. Ohio State getting bumped out in the first round. That's not going to help. St. Louis over Georgia, shocked by this game. Not that they won, but by the margin that they won it by. 102-77 for St. Louis. Go Atlantic 10. Get some of those digits, get some of those dollars to spread between your teams. Good showing for the Atlantic 10 in the tournament with VCU and St. Louis both getting out of the first round. That's going to add up in the cash register. But also they had a pretty good run in the NIT as well with St. Joe's and the GW Revs having first-round wins as well and getting to advance and move. So good stuff there. Good stuff there for the A10. All right. Arizona, 92-58 over LIU. The Sharks went home, but Arizona looks pretty good. Huge matchup with the guys from Arkansas coming maybe today or tomorrow, Pete. The games are on today. That's what I love about this. We got Sweet 16 games tonight, folks. We got Sweet 16 games tomorrow. All right, so now you got Florida, 114-55 over Prairie View A&M. These are some of the scores we're talking about in the variances of there's been some absolute blowouts. We're talking about a 17, 18-point differential on some of the averages in the first round, which is high and a lot. Iowa State, 108-74 over Tennessee State. They're looking pretty good. Purdue, 104-71 over Queens. Connecticut, here's Pete's guys, 82-71 over Furman. A monster game from Taris Reed to pull them through. Virginia, 82-73 over Wright State. Nice job by Wright State. You know, very, very nice job. They got hot at the right time of the year, and they gave Virginia all they could handle there. Alabama over Hofstra, 90-70. They shot the lights out. If they shoot the lights out, they're going to give Michigan all they can handle in the Sweet 16. Kansas over Cal Baptist, 68-60, a little closer than we thought it would be. Texas Tech over Akron, 91-71. They handled them, just handled them. St. John's over Northern Iowa, 79-53. I thought this might be closer, but Pitino's got them playing good ball at the right time. They clinched the Big East regular, then they go in and take the tournament, playing good ball all the way through. They're very athletic, very good. A lot's going to depend how well they shoot the ball, and that's going to be a factor for all 16 teams that are left. Tennessee over Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio, Pete's little Cinderellas. They got sent home by Mr. Rick Barnes, who is now in his 4th straight Sweet 16. Unbelievable. Texas fired him. Kentucky over Santa Clara, 89-84. Controversial game as well. Went into overtime. Santa Clara hit a shot. They were up by 3. Ortega away from Kentucky. Boy, was that from far away. And he hit a bomb from, I'd say, 40 feet and sent the game into overtime. Kentucky was lucky to escape that one and then got bumped the very next day badly. UCLA against UCF, 75-71. Let me go back to that Kentucky thing. When I say badly, that's the type of stuff that gets guys fired at places like that. Hubert Davis cruising along, 125-54. Gave up 19-point lead to VCU. Everybody went nuts. These are the type of losses that you can have. At Kentucky, they're going wild right now about this. I can assure you that. There ain't nothing else to do for those people down in Kentucky than talk about Kentucky basketball. And that's all they talk about 24/7. And I'm telling you right now, it ain't good. It ain't good. And when something like that happens, when you spend $22 million, the highest in the entire country, you're given every single resource necessary and possible to win, and your team comes out and plays like this all year, wow, that's what'll get you fired. That's going to be the new thing, Pete. It's the new metric. What did you do with what we gave you?
Yeah, what did you do with your bag?
Because it's going to be hard to keep going back to those money guys and say, give us more, when there's not anything for return on investment.
Yep.
The team didn't even look like they played hard. They didn't represent the jersey well. That's my school still. You know, there's going to be some tug on that from these guys with money. I can assure you that. All right, another good game. Miami over Missouri. Good win for them. UCLA over UCF, 75-71. Mick Cronin complaining the entire way. Utah State, 86-76 over Villanova. That was the 3 calls I thought I had that were good. I took TCU, I took VCU, and I took Utah State over Villanova. That's what sufficed on my bracket. I was 28 out of 32, Pete, in the first round, though. So this is the best bracket I've had in a while. Iowa, 67-61 over Clemson. Iowa still around. This guy does nothing but win Division II, move up to Drake, win at Drake, go to Iowa, take your Drake guys with you from Drake to Iowa. Unbelievable story. Unbelievable story. This guy can coach. Unbelievable. They're up against Nebraska and Hoiberg, and they got a squad too. Unbelievable. All right, so that tightens you up for the first round. Now let's tell you how we got to where we are. Michigan played St. Louis that next round and manhandled them. 95-72, wasn't close. They just took care of it most of the night. St. Louis is a good squad, but Michigan's loaded. and they're very well coached. Duke over TCU, 81-58, was never really much of a game either. These are supposed to be, the second-round games that are supposed to be good. And you're looking at some MOV. What we call MOV is margin of victory. These margin of victories are huge. That's good for the team that's winning, but it's bad for the team that's losing. It's also bad for television because you're in blowouts. Nobody wants to watch blowout. Here you go again. Houston over Texas A&M. Buckyball got shut down. 88-57, 31-point victory. Nobody wants that. And this is supposed to be where you're into that good area. Michigan State over Louisville, very good game, 77-69. Louisville just didn't hit enough shots. And Michigan State, they just keep coming. They just keep coming. That's what I like about them. Texas over Gonzaga. Gonzaga, Pete, they're out. Bounced. Mark Few happens to him quite a bit. They just don't get the talent that everybody gets. He does a great job in his league, but now you get out here against a team, Texas, they got 2 first-round picks on this Texas team, folks. They got 2 first-round picks on this team, and they're both really good players. So keep an eye on that team. They could keep going. Illinois, they got a little bit embarrassed Texas did by having to play in that play-in game. So they might have a little chip on their shoulder. Illinois, 76-55 over VCU. VCU ran into a train wreck. Now, you saw it. They were having a lot of trouble with North Carolina. And then North Carolina's defense just folded up the tent and went home. And then they kept coming, and then wound up getting it into overtime and winning. They could get nothing going against that Illinois front line. Yeah. They could get nothing going against them. All right, 76-55 there. Nebraska over Vanderbilt. This is a punch game for Nebraska. What do I mean by punch game? It's a punch your ticket game because that's a big opponent. Vanderbilt's really well coached. A lot of really good players on that team. And for Nebraska to handle them the way they did and handle themselves at the end of the game like they did, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so now we're on to the next day. Iowa and Florida, upset central of the round so far. Iowa punched out Florida. A little bit of action between the coaches, a little bit of scuffle on the floor between the players, a really hot, heated game that turned right for Iowa and Florida, the first number 1 seed to get the bounce. Arizona over Utah State. Utah State's good, man. They hung in that game, 78-66. Not really indicative, but it wasn't really a point where you thought Arizona was going to lose either, though. They were in control of the game. But Utah State, man, they just play well. They play very fundamental basketball, and they do a great job. I love their ball movement. All right, Purdue, 79-69 over Miami. They sent Miami home. Purdue, just solid, just solid. Iowa State over Kentucky, 82-63. This is what I'm talking about. MOV. They're 19 points over this team. That shouldn't happen to Kentucky in a round of 32 game. They think they're Elite 8 at the worst. They don't go to the Final Four. They're shocked. If they're not playing in the final, which hasn't happened in a while, they're really, really upset. So this is something that's going to keep an eye on that. Because we were very high on Pope, but right now, man, I would at least say that their evaluations have not been good. And they got schooled a couple of times here. We're going to talk about that in a moment. All right, so Pete, here's your game, Connecticut over UCLA. I thought this would be much closer. And Connecticut, this is what got Pete excited, makes me think that, with the coaching and everything they got going, they could actually do that as well. And some good news on their assistant coaching front. It looks like Luke Murray might be, when they're done playing, taking the Boston College job. We'll keep you posted on that one as well. Rising young star in the business, Luke Murray. We'll see if it goes. Tennessee, 79-72. One of the things in the BC conversation is going to be NIL dollars. Where are you? What's your commitment?
That's got to be the conversation, front and center.
And when you're at one, say you're talking to 2 candidates, and one guy says, "Well, I'll take it if you get us $4 million." The other guy says, "Well, I'll take it, but it has to be $8 million." That's where you're at right now with some of these negotiations. Tennessee, 79-72 over Virginia. Really good year for Virginia. Excited about their future under Coach Odom. Here's the one we're talking about, Pete. St. John's and Kansas. Just for a second, I want to stop. And I have no idea in my brain what Kansas was doing in the last couple of minutes of that game.
How'd they let that guy drive?
All the way to the basket. They had fouls to give.
Yeah, right. How did he let him drive?
They had fouls to give without putting him on the line. They could have stopped him, fouled him, and put him back out, and they have to inbound it again. It was terrible. And then the way that they played it was even worse. They just let him drive the whole length of the floor right to the basket and put a layup right in their face.
I watched it. I was like,
nobody moved.
What the hell
Nobody
happened?
moved. It's one of these things where they're making some of these great coaches look bad now. That's what I'm noticing too. Some of these great coaches, Bill Self, he would never have recommended that. That wasn't talked about in their huddle before they went out on the floor. I guarantee it. It's just amazing what's going on now in college basketball. Alabama 90-65. This is what's got me a little bit excited about Alabama right now. And apparently Rico Bosco and Dave Portnoy got a little some action going on there.
Saw that. Huge.
Big action going on. But it looks like Alabama's getting Michigan next. And Portnoy's a huge Michigan guy. But Rico Bosco likes Alabama, their ability to shoot the ball. They got a huge wager on that one. All right. So where are you now? Okay. You're at Texas versus Purdue. Texas play-in game. Purdue, one of the best in the country. Sean Miller versus Matt Painter. What a matchup. Unbelievable coaching matchup right there. Two studs in the business. No question about it. Game number 2 today. Today, folks, because when I get out of the studio, it's over. We're going to start celebrating right then. Get the TV ready. Get the chips and dip ready. Get everything ready. Gonna go to the Sweet 16, baby. All right, but then you got Nebraska and Iowa today. This is gonna be a great game. Regardless of what happens, this is gonna be a great game in my opinion. Really good coaches, really good guard play. Gonna have to be decided up front and see whose front line comes to play and who hits shots. This is where you're at right now. Who makes shots? That's what this whole thing's going to be determined on. Everybody's defense is up where it's going to be. Everybody's ball plays and ball handling and offensive set, it's where it's going to be, and it's going to stay right there too. It ain't going to go nowhere else. But the differential is which team makes the key shots in that game. And that's what we're going to monitor. Here's my game tonight. I'm frothing at the mouth for this one because either I'm going to be excited to come back in next week or I'm going to be choking on an apple because I would have choked the Arkansas and the prediction that I have that they'll go to the Final Four. I'm excited about this game, though. That is going to be a game. I'm going to put it out right now. I think Arkansas wins the game. I'll say right now, I think Arkansas wins this game. They're just so talented, so deep, and so is Arizona. But Arizona, like their young guy, Koa Pete, and some of their other young guys, they look a little bit young. Acuff looks like Iverson. He looks like the next version of Allen Iverson to me, and he's tough, and it's going to be a battle royale. Can't wait for that game tonight. Illinois against Houston, okay? This is going to be the battle of the Titans. Illinois' front line is the biggest in the country. Houston doesn't ever get caught without some big men. They got Tugler. They got some guys in there. But Houston's guard play might decide this game. Illinois is going to have a tough time keeping Kingston Flemings in front of them. But I also think Houston's defense is going to be given some challenges when Stojakovic really does all the penetrating that he's been doing so far. Playing great. All right, let me give you the coaching matchups there again. Miller versus Painter. Hoiberg versus McCollum. Wow. You got Calipari versus Lloyd. Unbelievable coaching matchup in the Sweet 16. This is why I say your Elite Eight and Final Four are going to be, who you got left? Because you got so many great ones that have to be eliminated. Somebody's going home. Then you got Underwood and Sampson. Oh, what a matchup. That's coaching 101 right there. All right, so you got St. John's on Friday. This is my favorite game of the whole thing right here. I want to see this game. I want to not move. And I hope TV doesn't do that crazy stuff that they do when you got 42 screens up and 22 games and all this stuff flashed up on your screen. I just want to watch the game in its entirety. Don't interrupt me. St. John's against Duke, Pitino versus Shire. It does not get any better than that, folks. Alabama versus Michigan, the Rico Bosco Portney Bowl. Going to be a good one. Going to be a good one because these guys are
on the line, man.
And these guys are smart. These guys are smart because the guy Bosco, you know, he's a personality.
Yep.
You know, and Portnoy is a business guy. You know, he looks at bottom lines. So they're completely polar opposites. But somehow when they get in and they start going at each other, it just winds up. So like these guys, to me, this bet is a genius.
You know what the bet is, right?
Yeah. So he's going to double his salary.
Give him a 10-year contract.
And give him a 10-year deal, right? Let me tell you right now, the way Bosco's kind of blowing up, because I couldn't name any of his other. I know he's got some guy in there named Cat. He's got some other guy over there, a bunch of slobs that sit on the couch and eat all day. I know he's got all those guys, but Rico Bosco's the only guy that you know really of a name in there that's a guy who's a personality like that.
Right.
So he's going to have to. So he's going to have to tie in Rico Bosco anyway, most likely, right?
Yep.
So he's making a bet with him to do what he's going to have to do anyway, which is offer him a BBD, which is a bigger, better deal because Bosco blew up. That's the way their business works. If you get viral, if you get looks, you get clicks, you get all that stuff, you get paid. So I think it was the genius of Portnoy.
Do you see the flip side of it, though?
He had to do it anyway.
But the flip
now,
side. Now
tell me about Bosco's side of it. What does he got to do?
Bosco, if he loses, he's got to host a podcast with his bitter rival. I can't remember the guy's name, but they posted it.
Huda.
Yeah, the guy he hates. But Portnoy goes, you could do it over Zoom. You don't have to be in person.
This is the genius of Portnoy. I got to be honest with you.
And it's for a year.
He just put a no-win. He just put a win-win.
Yeah, I know.
For himself on the table. Mm-hmm. You got to do Bosco's contract anyway. You don't want to let him get away.
Right.
$200,000 is what he would be making, right?
Yeah.
He's at $100,000. They're going to bump him to $200,000, I think. Yep. That's a steal. That's a steal for Portnoy. Now you're going to do a 10-year deal?
Yep.
Again, advantage Portnoy. Good for Rico Bosco, too. But if he's the rising star that everybody thinks he is, Portnoy just made a great management decision.
Lock him up, yep.
I gotta say I'm interested in that. Now, let's put all the chips into the middle of the table.
But it also brings Barstool front and center, and they've eclipsed the
NCAA. Exactly. These guys, everybody's talking about them, and that's what that whole thing is about. You know, everybody's going to want to know. And at the end of the day, it was like, you know, they brought everybody into the matrix, those two guys, man. I got to give them a lot of credit on that. Honestly, give them a lot of credit on that.
It happened organically. If you watched it, it looks like it happened organically because Portnoy doesn't mind putting his money on the table.
No, but I think he got off cheap, too.
I know.
All right, so Pitino and Shire. Wow. Good matchup there. Oates against May. Wow. Michigan, Alabama. That's going to be a ball game. Izzo against Hurley. Oh, another great matchup. Another great coaching Titans test. And then you got Barnes against Otzelberger. Come on, man. It don't get no better than that. All right, I got about 5 minutes. I'm going to scoot you through some stuff. We'll keep you in the main of it. All right, NIT bracket right now. New Mexico, Tulsa, Illinois State. I watched them against Dayton at Dayton last night. They knocked Dayton out. Dayton had a good year. I love the Letang young man that plays for Dayton. But Illinois State's got some dudes, and they shoot. They got some guys. Auburn is in there. Bruce Pearl's son is rocking and rolling. They looked pretty good the other night. I got to give it to them. They're probably the best team of this four right here. But New Mexico, you got to watch out for them. Shout out to our GW Revs, who had a good first-round win in Utah. I just don't get what the NIT was doing. They stayed in Utah and then went to New Mexico. Didn't come home. I don't know what the NIT was doing there with their scheduling. St. Joe's had to go to Cal and then go to New Mexico. I get it. It's a little bit of but that's a lot to ask your team to do. You're putting that team, especially walking into New Mexico, which is one of the best. They don't call it the pit for nothing. Walking in there, I just thought they put them at a little bit of a disadvantage. But really proud of Coach Caputo, all the efforts, everything they did this year, fabulous year. They've got a good remaining core next year. Keep an eye on the A10, folks. Keep an eye on the Revs. All right, Gavin Doty is the kid who was playing for Siena, had a great run and really put it up against Duke and did some great stuff. He is in the portal. Although the portal's not open, he's in there. So it's what I was saying before is also you now have the portal announcement prior to actually going in the portal in order to finesse this thing. The agents are all over this. So now you got guys going, well, and this is, I got to be honest, man, this is ticking me off a little bit. All right? The homage to the former school. Oh, thank you for the meals, the time, the put in, all of recruiting me, developing me, getting me going, so now I can leave you and jump to the next spot for money. I'm sick of that. I'm tired of hearing it. Just say, I'm out. Make it easy on all of us.
Yeah.
Forget the soliloquy of how much you loved where you are, but now you have to make a decision. You know, forget it. Nobody cares. You're in the portal. Thanks. We don't need the announcement. Just we'll know when your name shows up there. Okay, SBU unfurled, all right? We talked about Cinderella getting out of there. So my guy puts this out. 2 straight years, all 1 and 4 seeds advanced. First time ever. Only 4 double-digit seeds in the round of 32. Lowest since 2007. The favorites of 6+ points are 52 and 4 in the last 2 years. The schism grows. 13 and 32 of games decided by 20+ points, the most ever. Margin of victory in the first round, 17.4. That's too high. Too high.
Wow.
All right, Pete, we got 2 minutes?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to give out my dog bone right now. All right, my dog bone in the NCAA goes to Taris Reed because he's looking like Willis Reed. Go back to show 122, 121. I don't remember where it was, but I told you Taris Reed was going to blow up. I told you he was going to be one of the best big men in the country. And you know what happened? It came true. In the zone, we are prophets here. We will tell you the future. And you want to hear it? 31 points, 27 rebounds against Furman. 31 points, 27 rebounds against Furman. Taris Reed, you heard it here first, climbing the draft board on my side. The last 30 and 25 NCAA game, 1968, Elvin Hayes for the Houston Cougars. Unbelievable, Taris Reed, the UConn Huskies. Maybe that's why Pete's excited. Okay, the D1 portal is popping, although it's not even open yet. April 7th, I believe, is the open date for that. Okay, the SEC is dominating with dollars. Okay, that's my new phrase for them, dominating with dollars. Kentucky, $22 million on their payroll. But all the way down at the bottom, you got South Carolina at 5.5. They're in the same league. They're playing each other. Somebody's going to be a champion. You just let somebody walk in and cash in at $22 million, and the other team that's in your league has 5. Unbelievable. It's an anathema to the game. But let's talk about Kentucky for a second because I got a new name. Jaden Quaintance, transferred in from Arizona State. Bobby Hurley's name. His new nickname is Jaden Acquaintance. Okay? Kentucky paid him reportedly $2 million in NIL. Okay? He scored 20 points all year. That's $100,000 a point. Ooh. That's Jaden Acquaintance. Pete, that's what we got for today. We're going to, next time, folks, you see us, we're going to be on Friday in Indianapolis, bringing you live from the Final Four, rocking and rolling. Pete and I will be strolling, picking up coaches, picking up administrators, picking up anybody we can get who wants to talk to us. But we're also going to do our show out there as well. Everybody, tune in next week for a big in the NCAA zone. We'll see you next week, folks.